Channel 10 Nelson, your community access television. Programming on this channel is made by local volunteers. If you would like to be a part of your community television, please call 354-4200 or write to Shaw Cable, 613 Ward Street, Nelson, B1L 1T2.
In keeping with the series of recent interviews done on Nelson Today entitled Survival in the Kootenays, we traveled out to the Riondel, Crawford Bay area this week to speak to Anthony Arnold, who owns a unique business called Horse-Drawn Adventures. Now, you may have been as fortunate as I was this winter to have gone on an old-fashioned sleigh ride with Anthony and his two beautiful Percheron horses. Anthony is not a Canadian originally, but he's not exactly a newcomer either, and he's seen many ups and downs of the economy in the Nelson area, and I think come up with some very interesting ways to keep it together in the Kootenays. Well, let me start off by saying welcome to our show, Anthony, and thank you for inviting us into your home for this interview. And that I was delighted to have experienced one of your wonderful sleigh rides this winter and gotten a chance to talk with you a bit and find out how many different things you do. Recently on the show we've been doing a number of interviews around the theme of survival in the Kootenays, and I very much wanted to discuss with you how you've managed to do that over all these years. How long have you been in Canada?
I've been in Canada for 21 years now.
Wow. That's a long
couple
time.
more years and I will have been in Canada longer than I was ever in America.
And have you been in the Kootenays all that time?
Just about, yeah. A couple of sojourns elsewhere, but Kootenays have always been home.
Uh-huh. And Riondel is new or old for you?
No, Riondel's new. I used to live in the Slocan Valley. I lived there for many years.
Uh-huh. And how did you wind up there from the States?
Actually, I moved from the States to Vancouver, and the work that I was doing brought me through the Slocan Valley only a year after I'd moved here in a car. And I came through from New Denver. Have you ever been that way?
Yeah.
And came down the lake and into Slocan, and I thought, hey, this is home. This is the place I've always been looking for. And I went back to Vancouver and burned my bridges and moved out.
What kind of work were you doing at that time?
Well, in Vancouver, I was a struggling young artist.
I see. Are you still struggling?
No, I'm not struggling anymore.
Are you doing any art any longer?
Well, I had a professor in college who used to insist in various ways that he would say of himself, I am the artifact, you know. And I've been kind of spending all of my life coming to understand what he was talking about.
Uh-huh.
So, yeah, your life is your art.
Right. I relate to that.
Yeah.
I feel that true for myself a bit, too. So you moved to Slocan Valley.
Mm-hmm.
And did you do your art there, or what?
I did. I applied my art in the centers where people are at long distance for a while, and they gradually got seduced by the country lifestyle, and working outside and gardening and goats and eventually horses.
Uh-huh.
And art just kind of art per se kind of faded away, and country living became more of the focus. Yeah.
Uh-huh. So you got yourself some goats and some horses. You've got a couple of wonderful horses right now, Could you
Yeah.
tell us a little bit about, we're going to see them a little bit later. Maybe you
Right.
could tell us about them.
Well, my horses, my first horse was a horse that I got in the Slocan Valley. His name was Chief. I bought him from an old horse trader in Meadow Creek, Will Frempel. Anyone who has anything to do with horses in the Kootenays knows Will Frempel, because sooner or later we've all bought a horse from him.
Can I pet him?
Oh yeah. Horses are interesting, you know. Horses are much more responsive to a pet than a pat. Humans are into petting, but horses like being pet. A nice stroke, you know, that's what a horse likes. Nice scratch
God,
under
they're
the chin.
huge. They're absolutely huge. How big are they?
These horses weigh about 1,600 to 1,700 pounds apiece.
My goodness.
And at the shoulder, they'll stand 5 feet. You guys will get used to that.
There was rumor when I bought this horse that he'd been in harness and you had to pull things, which I don't know why. Maybe it's the nostalgia of it all. Always appealed to me, and so I had a neighbor who had a harness, and we got it on this horse, and I skidded some firewood with them, and I built a cart, and gradually learned how to handle this horse in harness rather than I rode him too, but the real intriguing thing was driving him, because our whole society used to be built on driving horses. Everything happened behind a horse. Any kind of transportation, local transportation, freight delivery, all of that, and having grown up when television was young, it's most of the imagery that I saw, that I remember from TV as a child, is horses pulling wagons, horses pulling stagecoaches, all the cowboy stuff.
Had you done anything like that when you had lived in the States?
No.
You weren't, you
No.
were a city person in the States?
I was a city person. My grandfather had horses on a little place out of town, but no, I never had anything to do with horses. So I got this horse, and he taught me. And then I got another horse, and then I had a team. And then my wife and I left the Kootenays for about 3.5 years and went and worked in an orphanage in Mexico, which was a real change in lifestyle. And when we were through being there, we came back, and after about 6 months I bought a big horse, a Percheron, a workhorse, a real workhorse. And I've had a number of them since then. And the team I have now are both Percheron geldings. And they're the culmination of something I wanted to do when we first came back. I wanted to get a team and have a team and do things with the team. One of the things, though, about having horses in this day and age and in this area is the pool of knowledge is very, very limited. And you see, 25, 35, 50 years ago, most young men, especially on the other side of the Rockies, knew how to handle a team. Their parents had teams, their dads had teams, their grandfathers had teams, and it was part of the community consciousness, caring for and handling horses. Well, there's nobody to teach me around here, There are a few opinionated people, and there were a few pointers to be had, but there was no pool of cultural knowledge to draw from.
So you had to teach yourself to drive.
It's a good thing I didn't start out with a team, especially the first team that I had.
So you find that there are differences in the personalities of the horses that you work with?
Well, there are differences in the personalities of the horses, but there are techniques for handling them that seem to only have come to me by experience. I think they would only come to anyone by experience, but the point that I'm making is that in another era, in another place, that experience would have been much more readily available at a much younger age.
So you are perhaps responsible for reviving I would say an art form, except I suppose driving horses, well, I suppose at its highest level, it's an art.
It's very much an art form. Well, I've been trying to do various things with my horses, the sleigh rides and the hay rides, and I've envisioned a number of different things that you could, activities that you could do to involve other people in the experience of driving horses, because it's a very fascinating and a very invigorating thing to do, but how actually to go about it is to share it is usually just a one-on-one thing with people who are interested. Mm-hmm. Lots of times in the hay rides I hand the reins over to someone else.
So tell us about the hay rides and the sleigh rides that you do. Is this something that you did also in the Slocan Valley? Or
No.
I'm curious how you managed to make a living with these horses.
Well, I don't.
You don't? Wait a minute, we're here to talk about how you survived in the Kootenays, and you're not surviving with your horses. So.
Well, I'll tell you, this year, 1989, was the first year that my horses more than paid for themselves. And believe it or not, that's a real achievement. I would guarantee you that 95% of the horses in the Kootenays do very little but sit around and eat. You know, they get ridden a bit. And there are a few teams around that get driven a bit, but most horses are basically a drain on people's incomes, and they keep them for other reasons than to make money. And I'm very, very pleased that this year my horses more than paid for themselves.
And this is through developing your hay ride in the summer and sleigh ride in the winter business. And
I did some logging with them last winter, last February, and we made some money that way.
That's great.
Yeah, it was great. You ready to go?
I'm ready.
Okay, let's go then. Team, yep. That's a boy. There's another wagon I built there. Who else is in cabinet, Sparky? Old-timers say you should walk your horses the first mile, and then you can do anything you want after that.
These horses look like they're pretty well matched. How do you get them matched?
You spend a lot of time. This horse on the left is the fourth horse that I've obtained to try and match the horse on the right. And he's the best match so far, but he's still not the perfect match. Now you notice as we're going along, see how Sparky will, every once in a while, he'll break into a trot just to keep up with Carl. And Carl's just walking. And that's because Carl's longer stride, longer legs. And so Sparky, to move comfortably with him, has to do that little trot. And to get them walking together, you got to get Carl to slow down a bit and Sparky to speed up.
So there's actually quite a bit involved in learning how to drive these horses.
Yeah, it's a lot more than just... actually, no, I can... in fact, in a minute here, I'll hand you the reins and you can give it a try. When you have all the other conditions under control, driving them isn't hard, but getting the horses so that they're being responsive and so that they'll behave, so that they know what you want, having your equipment in order, having your horses in condition so you didn't just take them out of the pasture for the first time in the last 3 months. All that other stuff is the secret to this point now, where these horses and me, we're a team of 3. Just put your hands in front of mine. In front of mine.
Okay.
That's right. Now you're going to have to hold them harder than you think. You want to feel their mouths. Pulling it right rein a little harder. You want to take up the slap. Not so hard that they go off into the woods though. Get on. That's good boy. Nice balance, even tension.
Boy, it really takes a lot of...
Easy now. Walk. Easy. Easy. Walk. 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 Easy. Hold it right rein a little more. Now, tighten up on both reins a bit. Going downhill. We don't want them to get the idea that we can go faster. Easy. Easy. Walk.
Oh, wow, that was fantastic.
You like that, huh?
That was great. Thanks for letting me do that.
Can I sell you a team?
Hey, I'm ready to buy anytime.
What kind of people come out? Are they local people mostly? Are you dealing with tourists or a combination? What do you find?
Most of the people who came on a sleigh ride came from Nelson. And they came on a sleigh ride because of the magic of it, because of the just kind of the inherent difference of it, you know. It has a nostalgia value, and it has a more than a hayride, you know. A sleigh ride, you know, it really sets off a reaction in your imagination.
You've been here, I'm sure, 21 years. You've seen some pretty decent fluctuations in the economy in this area.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And you managed to stay on. What do you think are the... How do people manage to do that successfully? So many people have had to leave or chose to leave during the fluctuations, yet so many others have managed to somehow hang in there during the down parts and survive through it. Mm-hmm. What do you think the key to your success has been with that? Why do you think you're still here after having seen those fluctuations?
Well, I think it would be the same for us as for a lot of people who have been here over the long haul, is that they get a lot of their life satisfaction from the quality of the environment that we live in and the quality of the human environment that they live in. And so they're willing to live a less high-priced lifestyle because those other values are so meaningful to them.
So it's a matter of priorities.
Yeah, I think it is. It's a matter of priorities. And I know that the other thing that lots of people I know who have been here for the long haul don't have all their eggs in one basket. You know, they do little things to survive, which might be as simple as having a garden, or as complex as having a little small business on the side.
Right. And do you now, after having lived here almost as long as you lived in the United States, what are the differences that you sense between the lifestyles for you? What's the most obvious differences for you between living in Canada and living in the States? Obviously, you've made a choice to remain here.
That's an interesting question. I've never really thought of it. I tend to relate more to being a citizen of the Kootenays as opposed to being a citizen of Canada. But I would say that if you wanted a generalization, that Canadian people tend to be less intrusive of their physical and their social environment than American people are.
What do you mean by intrusive?
Well, again, you know, this is a real generalization. This is just one poor bricklayer's opinion, you know. But it seems to me like there's just a more of a softness, more of a gentler, more of an easy way in relationships and in lifestyle. Maybe it's conservatism, I don't know. Then Americans have kind of a brash and kind of a takeover way sometimes, and kind of they'll fill up more space, you know. And Canadian people I would see them as somewhat shyer, somewhat more retiring, somewhat more like an oyster and less like a crab. You know what I mean? Which I tend to feel like myself, and I think this is why I'm still here, why I like being here, because I feel more at home in that sort of a milieu than in Americans, you know, are out there. They've got to want to take charge.
You're not making a living totally with the horses yet. So what else do you do for a living?
I used to do a lot of brickwork and blockwork and rock work and stonework. And when I moved to this side of the lake, all of my clientele was elsewhere, and I went over to the Slocan Valley most of one summer to make some money, and then was a little burned out on that. That fall, I got intrigued by this Kootenay Forge blacksmith shop, and I met the proprietor, John Smith, and he asked me to come and work with him.
So what do you make at the forge?
We make, mostly what we make are tools for fireplaces.
Sometimes we'll do 40 of these at a time, so you can imagine how long the noise lasts. We always had to have 3 in at once, but I only need 2 for this fire. Everything gets that curl, just to kind of finish it off. Then go for what's called a local quench, because we only quench a part of it. And that hardens that curl. It's really hard now, but I can put it over the horn and hit it with the hammer, and it doesn't misshape it. As you can see, I'm hitting it quite hard. Normally I'd just beat on it there and it'd just go flying across the room, but I'm cutting it off very carefully so you can see.
Well, thanks, Anthony. It's time to get on my way.
Glad you came.
Thanks for sharing your world with us.
You're welcome.
This is Anthony Arnold, one of our Kootenay Survivors.